Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today as we talk about protecting the vote and protecting the message. I saw a really interesting story that had a connection to modern day politics, AI, artificial intelligence. You see, in the New Hampshire primaries, artificial intelligence was used to misdirect Democratic voters. How did that happen? Why did they happen? Someone pulled together what sounded like Joe Biden, the president, but it wasn't him, urging people not to vote. And but that happened in the Chicago mayoral campaign less than a year ago with Paul Vallis, a candidate who came with this close to winning, like within 4 percentage points of winning. So we're going to talk with him today as we look at protecting the vote and protecting the message in the election 2024 cycle. Indeed, there's a lot. There's a lot that is being done to attack the vote. So we want to walk through with you the things that you can do to protect your vote in this election cycle. If we were having a robust presidential contest on the Democratic side, we'd be talking more about this, but we're not. And it is unfortunate because what we're missing are the things that are happening to people in real time that are denying them the opportunity to vote, or it's making it significantly harder. And now our advocacy groups, the NAACPs, uh, the Rainbow Pushers, the National Action Networks, and on and on and on, they do not have the space. Now they cannot sue when you are wronged at the polls. Yeah, yeah. Now that has been, now that is real. So we've got to talk about that, everybody. We got to talk about that. I want you to please stay tuned in to AM 950 Radio. You can stream am950radio.com, stream them all the time, some of the best progressive talk in the country. But I want you to meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, so you can see us here. Hey, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. But we're going to be talking about protecting the vote today because we certainly need to know how that can happen in this environment. And you know, I begin this show always with a little bit of good news. And I guess the good news for me today, in the absence of the people who ordinarily do the good news, is this, something that I've learned in life. The queen of gospel music, Albertina Walker, had as maybe her last popular record, and all of her records are popular because they're iconic, but the name of that song is I'm Still Here. I made it through. Well, and so can you. No matter what. Elton John saying, I'm still standing. So whatever comes to you in your life that can take you off balance, that can knock you off your feet, you know, remember that the ground is no place for a champion. My father says that all the time. The ground is no place for a champion. And in life, you're going to get knocked down. But the question is, will you get up? And after you look back over the storms of your life, can you say that I'm still here? Yeah, actually you can. You can see that there's nothing that's been so awful in your life, no matter how dreadful it's been, that's taken you out of here. Nothing has taken you out of here. So please remember what Albertina Walker sang. I'm still here. I made it through. I hope that gives you something to go on in your day. I hope it makes you feel a little bit better. I don't know what you're going through. I think I'm talking to someone who's listening to me right now, someone who's going through something that they feel that they cannot make it through. But I'm here to tell you, yeah, you can. And I'm here to tell you that if you do not have the pressure, if you do not have the pain, if you do not have the struggle, you will remain a hunk of coal. But on the other side of that pressure, on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that struggle is a diamond, and that diamond is you. But you got to deal with the pressure. My grandma Helen used to say, if you can't take it, you can't make it. A diamond would be but a hunk of coal, but not for the pressure. If not for the pain. No gain. Yeah, well, that's true in life. You're going to go through. Things are going to happen, and they're going to be there will be some storms that are going to take you, that are going to bring you to your knees. Well, while you're on your knees, say a prayer. While you're on your knees, look up to God, from whence cometh your strength. And just know that after it's all over, if you hold on, you will still be here. And that is the good news for me today on the Santita Jackson Show. Sending you much love. Let's get to some of these headlines as we talk about protecting the message and protecting the vote. Um, Protecting the message and protecting the vote. Yeah, the vote is under threat, and if your vote did not mean anything, so many people would not be threatening to take it away from you. So I want you to stay in touch with me at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Stream us, please stream us, and also go to AM 950 Radio. AM 950 Radio. Let us begin. I love to read some of these headlines, and let us look at some of them right now. The EU foreign policy chief to the world leaders, stop saying please and cut off arms to Israel. That's right. The European Union's top foreign policy officials said on Monday that the Biden administration and other governments professing concern about the grisly death toll in the Gaza Strip should stop supplying so much weaponry to the Israeli military as it carries out one of the most devastating bombing campaigns in modern history. Pointing to U.S. President Joe Biden's statement late last week that Israel's war in Gaza has, quote, been over the top, close quote. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, said during a press conference in Brussels, well, if you believe that too many people are being killed, maybe you should provide less arms in order to prevent so many people being killed. What do you think about that, everybody? Human activity is pushing more than 1 in 5 migratory species toward extinction, according to the United Nations. As world governments gathered in Uzbekistan Monday for the United Nations Conference on Migratory Species, they centered the theme on nature knows no borders, an idea that a new landmark report said that must take hold across the globe to push policymakers in every country and every region to protect the billions of animals that travel each year to reproduce and find food. The Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species marked the opening of this conference, this UN conference, and they showed that more than 1 in 5 migratory species are looking at extinction. What will that look like, everybody? And a Dutch court is blocking weapons parts for Israel over the risk to Gaza. But what will America do? I want you to let me know what your thoughts are. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and leave a message. Let us know the crisis in Gaza has got people all over the world talking. But there are a lot of things that are happening all over the world. Trinidad and Tobago, they're mulling an historic disaster declaration after a ghost ship oil spill. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, this weekend said it is considering what would be the island's first ever level 3 disaster declaration amid a worsening environmental disaster caused by an oil spill from a mysterious ship on the eve of the Caribbean country's famed carnival. As more than 1,000 emergency workers and volunteers raced to clean up the massive spill, Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Keith Rowley told reporters that, quote, cleaning and restoration can only begin as soon as we have the situation under control. Right now, the situation is not under control. Why aren't we hearing about that, everybody? As the IDF Rafah invasion looms, progressive groups are urging Biden to end the complicity in the Gaza genocide. Do you think this will be enough to push President Biden in the 2024 election cycle? He has got a lot on his plate, but this is a big deal. Arab groups in Michigan were unrelenting with him about their support, about their support for him, about them not having the support, him not having their support. So, what do you think about that? Could he lose the election on Gaza? You let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Or will it be the economy? How are Bidenomics helping you? Or are they? Um, and what can be done? A lot of good things have happened in this administration. The question is, how can the message get out? Will the message get out? You let me know at Santita Jackson, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want to hear from you. And the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That's the only Facebook page that I have where I can accept friends. You can go to Santita Jackson, but you really have to go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. They shut you down on the Santita Jackson page, on the regular page. So I had to open up a new page. So everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show. Go to Santita Jackson and Friends. I opened up that page just for you. Just for you. So reach out to me, everybody. Let's talk about the election. Let's talk about the election. Have you voted yet? We just had the South Carolina primary that President Biden won by a large margin, but not by a lot of votes. They had a 14% turnout in 2020, but it was down to 4% this time. 4%. So what does that say? Even though he won more than 90% of the votes were off by a whole lot. Not that 14% was that great, it really wasn't. But to go from 14% to 4% lets you know that there is a dampened enthusiasm. And so what happens when you have AI intervening? When you have AI calling people, telling them not to vote? That happened in New Hampshire. And see, back in the day, 50, 60 years ago, the intelligence community would pay many black gangs in black neighborhoods to tell people not to vote. And you'd see it on graffiti, and you'd see it all over the place, that message, not to vote, not to vote, not to vote. But now it's more sophisticated. You get the robocall that sounds just like the person you want to vote for. That sounds just like even the opponent. That sounds just like them. The same inflections, the same everything. And they're calling, and it's not them. And you're seeing video images manipulated. We've got to be careful, everybody. We've got to be careful. We've got to be careful. You've got to know exactly what is going on. That's why we're going to talk to Paul Vallis, the former CEO of Chicago Public Schools, and a man who was within 4 points of becoming the mayor of Chicago just last year. He's still a very popular figure here in Chicago. And we want to find out what happened in his campaign because AI negatively impacted his mayoral campaign. We've got to talk about that. So I want you to reach out to me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the messages. And let's talk about why many of you, what you do when you get to the polling place and you have questions. Remember, all the judges don't have the right information. Crystal Mason, remember her down in Texas? She had just served some time. Her mother told her, you need to go vote. She said, I don't think that I can vote. Her mother said, no, you've had your rights restored. So she goes to the polls. She shares with the judge at the polls her situation. I'm coming out of prison, and will I be able to vote? The judge said, of course. And then she was charged with voter fraud and had to go to prison again. Let's talk about that, everybody. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So I'm going to reach out to Shamina Knighton and have her call in. on StreamYard. Let me just reach out to her right now. Let me just go on and make that happen. And let me just make sure that I have her.
Hey, Santita.
Dr. Knighton, I have you up on. Just go on and click the link. You don't have to go on video, but I just need to get you on the link, okay? The bottom link.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I had
Okay.
text you. I was waiting to hear back.
No
Okay.
worries. I'm on air right now. Thanks so much. Bye bye. So coming up, we have Dr. Shanina Knighton. Yeah, that's right. That's what happens in live radio. Who is she? She's an infection preventionist. You all know her. She's been on the show just about every day since I met her during the pandemic. And I'm going to tell you, talking to her has been a blessing. And she's made me much more careful, much more conscientious about how I move through the world so that I can be healthier. The greatest, uh, the greatest form of transmission for COVID and for all of these illnesses is improper hand hygiene. Improper hand hygiene, not washing your hands enough, not washing your hands properly, should I say. So we're going to be talking about, well, I don't know what she wants to talk about today, but I'm going to bring her up shortly so that we can talk about our health. But I want you to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Tell people about it. Tell people about it. And we'll talk about the vote today. We'll talk about what happens when you go to the polls and you get pushback, even from the judges. What happens if a fight breaks out at the polls? What happens if you get to the polls and they say that your name has been purged from the voter rolls? What do you do? Do you leave? Absolutely not. Do you take a provisional ballot? Not if you don't have to. So we have to talk about that. I want you to reach out to me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel because many of us do not know what to do. We don't know what to do. And we don't think to ask until, you know, really until you're in the polls. And then when you're in the polls, you're kind of freaking out because it's the time to vote and you say, I really don't know what's happening. So I want you to reach out to me at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and let me know what you're dealing with. But also call 1-866 Our Vote. 1-866 Our Vote. 1-866 Our Vote. If you have any problem at the polls, call these lawyers in real time. Call these lawyers in real time and let them know what your problem is and let them resolve it. And do not leave the polls until they have resolved your issue and until you have voted. If we had a robust primary, we would be we'd be talking about this. But because we don't have a robust primary, we're not talking about it. So I've got Dr. Shanina Knighton up with me right now. And Dr. Knighton, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Wait a minute. I'm going to get you right now. Hold on. Let me make sure that you are not on mute. And let me get you. Let me get you. Dr. Knighton?
Hello, can you hear me?
Knighton? All right, gotcha. You're looking just as beautiful as ever. I was telling people about hand hygiene and all of that. But what's on your mind
So
today?
I think one of the things that we should talk about, and it's interesting, we just, of course, finished up the Super Bowl yesterday, and we always talk about plan, let's say offense, when we talk about prevention, but I think we should talk about defense. Excuse me about that. Let me
Mhm.
decline. I actually put this on Do Not Disturb, which is interesting, and it's
That
still
happened to
ringing.
me yesterday. I was wondering what
Yeah,
was going on with my phone.
yeah, I
I
had
didn't
to,
do it.
right. But yeah, so no, I think like one of the biggest things that I want to talk about is when you in a situation of where your immune system, let's say you don't know it's compromised. So you just came from, let's say, a big Super Bowl party, or you were out at a big event and you think that you're on the verge of being sick. How do you start to think through ways that you can boost your immune system when you think you are on the verge of being sick? One of the biggest things that I tell individuals is to make sure that they're fortifying their immune system with foods that contain vitamin C, fruits, we're talking about your oranges, your grapefruits, we're talking about anything citrusy. It may be something as small as putting some lemon in your water, just to make sure that you're getting some vitamin C in. And when we talk about anti-inflammatories, turmeric is a good one, ginger are is a good one. So anytime that you know that you may have, let's say, consumed a lot of sugar, you may have been stressed out, you may have been exposed to being around a lot of people, these things may not necessarily stop you from being ill, but what it does do is it does decrease your chances of having, let's say, a cold that may have been more severe. And
Well,
so it's
well,
all
well, let me ask you this: if you have inflammation issues, like edema, swollen feet, ankles, does that mean automatically that your immune system is compromised? What could that mean?
so it could not. So for one, with your health, and we're talking about if you are, let's say, having swelling, is to ask yourself diet wise, what am I doing potentially that can lead to swelling? So did you consume a lot of salt that may have been greater than, let's say, the daily intake?
Hmm.
If it's something that persists and let's say is debilitating, that would be the time to go see your provider or to seek out a provider, just to make sure that there isn't some sort of underlying condition. Our bodies tells us things. So when we get that itch in our throat and we say, is this a cold? Or maybe we're allergic to something that we ate and we're just ignoring it. It could be if you are getting swelling, it's something to a bigger underlying issue. So it's just really being aware, what are we doing in our day-to-day lives that when we do have these interruptions, that we're not checking on them. And sometimes work tends to take priority, taking care of others takes priority, but it might be your body giving you an early warning sign that something may be more serious. So if something like that, such as swelling, persists, if you have, let's say, a cough that just won't go away and is longer than the duration of a cold, if you're starting to, let's say, have blurred vision, anybody not being able to see is not normal. These are all things that you would want to go check, you would want to go get checked up on sooner than later.
Hmm. Okay. Because I hear a lot about inflammation now,
Yes,
and it makes me wonder, what are we doing? Is it something we're
exactly.
eating? Or is have we? Because I we know we did have a pronounced fall off in our health during COVID, and not just because of COVID. I think it's psychological. I think it's spiritual. I think it's a whole lot of things. But people didn't fare well during the pandemic, and when we were locked in and locked away from other people.
So that's the thing. And I think that I'm going to try to explain this as much as possible down to the cellular level. Okay. Our bodies is our protector. Like it's going to let you know when something is invading it, something is entering it that is not favorable.
Hmm.
So inflammation is that warning sign that something is not okay.
Hmm.
So, as you mentioned, when you talk about the swelling of the feet, that is inflammation. That's all of, let's say, your body's cells, like all of the worker cells that are then flying to that area to say, hey, something is in imminent danger, right? So, it's a protective mechanism. It's the same exact thing, for example, when you start to have, let's say, that cold and you're like, oh my gosh, I have phlegm. That is your body letting you know that there is some sort of viral particles, bacterial particles, or fungal particles that have invaded your body that should not be there. So inflammation has always been around. It's more prevalent because people are starting to understand that based off of how we eat, the stress that we encounter, how we have a relationship with sugar, which is a real thing, all of these things can lead to inflammation. And so trying to keep your body in its place of where you are decreasing inflammation by eating anti-inflammatory, let's say, foods, taking nutrients or minerals and vitamins that actually work against inflammation, it means that your body is in a better state of being able to fight off those germs.
Hmm. So what would you advise us to do right in through here? Because I mean, a lot of it seems that a lot of us are dealing with a lot of illnesses today. I mean, I don't just anecdotally
Yes.
people dealing with RSV. Um, it seems that almost every other person I know has been impacted by cancer in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a lot going on, and it's hard to
It
keep up.
is.
And heart disease is barely detectable in women, and and by the time we get it, it's virtually too late.
Absolutely. And
I mean,
that's going
let's
to be something we'll talk about tomorrow for sure in more detail, because that deserves a whole nother, that's a whole segment just in itself, right? Just because, again, it goes back to us putting our own health on the back burner because we have so many others to take care of. So I think that that's definitely something that we should address tomorrow. But
okay.
back to your question, Santita, like today, in regards to when you say, well, what should we do? I will tell anybody it starts with our plate. It starts first with our plate. It starts with what it is that we are consuming, and I understand many of us may live in, let's say, food deserts. Some people may have access to, let's say, fresh food, but may not be aware of what it is that they're consuming and how it's negatively impacting their bodies. But I would encourage people to start, especially if you know that you're eating foods with packaging, encouraging you to look at the ingredients on the back of the packaging, and even something as simple as Googling on your phone, what are the side effects of, let's say, BHT? Does BHT cause inflammation? Asking yourself these questions about these foods, even saying to yourself, is this ingredient associated with my congestive heart failure? Google is everybody's friend. I understand during my parents' generation and prior generations, the internet was not there in order for us to be able to have access to this information. But now that it is available, I will tell you there are plenty of studies around what it is that we are consuming. So if I can give anybody a small tip about what to do, it's going to be to start with our plates. Start with what it is that you're consuming. Start with asking yourself, if I know what I'm consuming is unhealthy, how can it harm me? Just by simply looking at the ingredients, Santita, and making one small change can lead to something that's, let's say, like it can lead to something amazing. So, for example, if you know that you would prefer to eat, let's say, a bag of potato chips, say to yourself, how do I incorporate a vegetable in that instead of eating two bags during that day? If I can incorporate, let's say, more vegetables on my plate and cut back on the potatoes, if I can, instead of frying my chicken, bake my chicken or grill it. So it's really just thinking through what are some solutions and some ways for which I can actually be more healthier just by taking one small step at a time. It can be overwhelming if you look at absolutely everything that you're doing that's incorrect, but when you take small incremental steps, it can lead to big rewards.
Well, it is overwhelming because we find that most of what we do is incorrect. Most of what we're eating is unhealthy. I mean,
Yes,
when American fast food restaurants go into these other countries that don't eat fast food, their health outcomes decline markedly.
absolutely.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, and
They don't
look,
work out. They don't work out either. Like
I
they're,
love my burgers like the next person, but I'm like, well, there's a connection here. If the
yeah,
burger can sit out for 10 years and you microwave it and you can eat it, something's not right here.
but understand what that does though. And I, again, going to go back to that cellular level of what you just said. As you mentioned, preservatives. Our bodies renew, create cells every single millisecond of the day. We're constantly replenishing and renewing. If I eat something that is intended to preserve the food, it's going to preserve the food, which means that it's going to preserve those old cells in my body, which means that the new cannot replenish.
Hmm.
It's preserving them in a way that my body can't renew, it can't recharge, and it cannot be in a better state because it's stuck. There are some ingredients. I'll give you an example. What does formaldehyde do?
Stores the dead.
Yes, exactly. It's meant to preserve a dead body, right?
Yeah.
So if I told you that formaldehyde is put inside of food ingredients as a preservative, then that will tell you that if it has the ability to be able to preserve a dead body, it's preserving all of your old cells. It is preserving all of the old things in your body, stopping your body from being able to process new. So that's preserving that fat, right? It's
Mhm.
preserving, the toxins in your body instead of being able to get rid of it. So once we start to think about how are these preservatives related to our body's ability to be able to renew, our body's ability to be able to, let's say, lose weight, our body's ability to be able to lower our blood pressure, it comes down to, are we asking ourselves, when we say preservative, is it preserving the things that I really would like to change about myself?
Dr. Shanita Knighton, I never thought of it that way. I bring it up, Attorney Daryl Jones, but I tell you what, and he is a marathoner. So,
What? Okay,
Attorney
that's
Jones, yeah, like you. Attorney Jones,
Hello.
hey, how you
Hi.
doing?
Good. How are
good.
y'all?
I have
Pretty
two
good.
marathoners with me today, you and Dr. Knighton. And so she's been telling us as she's been talking on her health segment about about things that we need to be eating.
Yeah.
I mean, you sound like my father. He said, honey, if you want to look at your health, look at your plate.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hmm. That's true.
And he would say that when I was growing up. Because I was struggling with my weight, and he would say, but also you've got to be active. He was a former Big Ten football player at the University of Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
and he played football through college. So and up until even now with Parkinson's and being in a wheelchair much of the time, he still goes to the gym.
I
Hmm.
love that for him because I'll
Hmm.
tell you, I had a friend and she was actually trying to compete, like do one of the bodybuilding shows. And so she was competing for a show and she was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't been eating a lot. I'm not able to lose these last couple of pounds. I said, well, what else are you eating outside of your regular diet? She was like, well, and I'm not going to give the brand, but she's telling me that she chews on these mints, okay, these little small mints, this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, that's your problem right there. And she was like, well, why would you say that? I said, they have maltodextrin in it. And maltodextrin is associated with weight gain. I said, so it's going against everything that you're trying to do. And the minute she got rid of the mints, she lost the weight.
Oh,
That
wow.
is unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
But it's in
Something
our
simple.
vitamins. Yeah, our vitamins too. So if I ever get vitamins, I have to make sure that they don't have maltodextrin in them.
When I started Dr. Atkins' program before I let you go, I was his patient more than 25 years ago when I lived in New York, Attorney Jones and Dr. Knighton.
Yeah.
And I had it's a full throat issue, and I went to see my otolaryngologist, who was one of the best in the world. And she said, well, since you are, because I lost a significant amount of weight,
Mhm.
she prescribed something for me. And she's a very conservative doctor, so medicine is not something that she is like. She always wants to. She's very, 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 very careful about what she prescribes. But
Mhm.
she said I called back to the pharmacy to make sure that it's sugar free.
Mm.
I said, "Oh wow, thank you. I didn't even know I had that option."
Right.
Okay, I
Hmm.
didn't even know I had the option. So I think thank you for that, and thank you for all of your brilliance and for your research, because you are, in addition to being a registered nurse, Attorney Jones, she is a research scientist,
Wow.
and a college lecturer. So this is
Mhm.
an infection preventionist. This is what she does, but she does the research, and that's important for us to know. And so we don't take for granted your presence on the show every day, helping us to think more deeply. While you're in the store, pull out that phone and look on the back of your packages and find out what's in there and Google them. Find out.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
How about that? What would you like to say before you go, Dr. Knighton?
That's pretty much it. I will say I will be doing a better job to listeners with my Hey Dr. Nina page,
Oh,
and I will. And I honestly, I think the thing that I've been struggling with is more so just I need to be out more. Meaning I'm doing all of this infection prevention stuff in my day-to-day lives. And so what I'm trying to attempt to do is be able to capture that like on the go. So meaning
Mhm.
one of the things that I know, I talk about the steering wheels all the time.
yeah. When you captured someone you love on the steering wheel and you said, I can't believe he's doing this like that.
Oh yeah, like him. And you know who I'm talking about. But guess what? I'm about to go do other just random people. I'ma just go around with wipes and I'm be like, "Can I wipe your steering wheel down?" And I'm just gonna record it because I really want to swab them, but I don't want to scare people in regards to they driving. But I at least want them to be able to see the visual germs of just wiping down their steering wheel and what they're eating when they're driving. So I'm gonna do some surveys and I'm gonna absolutely do some disinfectant wipes so they can see
Mhm.
what they're driving and eating with.
Wow. One of the scariest times I think is when people go to get gas,
Mm.
and
Oh,
oh my goodness, those
absolutely.
gas handles.
Absolutely. And
Oh.
so, and I bring that same exact thing up. I'll ask them, I said, okay, so what did you do today in your car? They'll say, I went to go get gas and then I went to go grab food. And I'm like, did you eat the food in the car? And was it before or after the gas? I'm like, how many people pumped the gas station? Did you clean your hands? Did you sit stationary and eat or were you driving and eating? And you will be surprised like how many people do it. And when they're saying, oh, I don't know why I'm sick or where I got this illness from, a lot of our germs that we don't pay attention to happens in our cars.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dr. Nina. Hey, Dr. Nina is her handle, everybody. But even what you have up there right now, from showing us physically how to wash our hands, and a lot of the advice that you give us, you make us think. And you make it very, very easy, very accessible. This advice that you're giving us, this instruction. And it's easy to follow. It's tough to put it into practice every day, but I promise you, your health, your body will thank you for it. Your body will
Absolutely.
thank you for it. I'm sending you so much love, my love to those babies.
Thank you so much. And you have a great show. Nice to see you in person, Attorney Jones.
Nice seeing you, Dr. Knight, and I'll see you out on the running trails.
Absolutely.
She's
Bye.
out there, my soror. Sending you much love.
Bye.
Bye bye. Attorney Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, one of the nation's leading voting rights advocates, indeed. You and Attorney Barbara Arnwine, she's iconic in the space of voting rights, the former executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. You are the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. And in and out of season, you and Attorney Arnwine, who could be heard on WOL every Tuesday, is it at 12 noon
12
Eastern
noon
Standard
Eastern.
Time?
Yes. Yes.
WOL in Washington, D.C., WOL. And at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, you should look at that. You should listen to the show and go to barbaraarnwine.com, barbaraarnwine.com. Um, because we're not having a Democratic primary
Mhm.
in ordinary times, like 4 years ago, and typically we're talking about the threats to our voting rights, Attorney Jones,
Mhm.
voter intimidation, voter suppression. These things have not gone away, but because we don't have a robust primary season, because the sexy part really is the presidential contest. We live for that every 4 years.
Mhm.
Because we don't have that now, we're not talking about it. But well, let me ask you: has voter suppression, have threats to the vote gone away?
Oh my goodness. Has Not only has it not gone away, but it has intensified.
Since
And
2020.
absolutely, because what happens is this in 2020 during the 2020 election, for instance, we were in Georgia. Let's just use Georgia and Florida as the example. We were in Georgia. We were giving out water and food to people that were in these lines, these very long lines. In line for they would be in line for 2-3 hours or more, waiting to vote. And let's say you were a person that was taking medication and you didn't anticipate on being in line for 2 or 3 hours, and you needed water to take your medication or food to take your medication. One of the things that we did was that we were giving water and food to people that were waiting in line. And what then happened is that in the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State there, Rappersberger, initially came out and told us that if he saw us giving anyone as much as a cup of coffee, he was going to have us arrested for trying to influence voters, which he could not do at that point in time. But what happened subsequently was that during the next legislature in 2021, the legislature passed Senate Bill 202, which made it illegal to give out water and food to people that are waiting in line, and a whole litany of other things that really, really took hold in the 2022 election. And so now we fast forward to 2024. So what have they done now? Again, using Georgia as an example, one of the things that Georgia used to do was that Georgia had mobile voting machines, like a mobile voting truck, if you will. And it could go into one of the parks, Piedmont Park, if you will, and it could have people vote. They could go in and vote, or if they had same day voting, they could do the same day voter registration and vote. Well, what they did in 2022 is they recognized the effectiveness of the access of people being able to vote, and they wanted to stop that because these voting mechanisms were going into particularly communities of color at urban areas and having them vote. So what the Senate Bill 202 did and what the state of Georgia did was they made it illegal for there to be any type of vehicle, such as those types of modular road vehicles that could carry all the equipment, it wasn't a question about the security because it was completely secure, but they didn't want people to have that ease in voting. So that's one of the things that we saw that has now developed and is in place now for 2024. We've seen them still continue to remove people from voter registration, from the voter rolls and voter contact lists. And oftentimes, particularly in Georgia, there are voter challenges where people can challenge the voter without the voter even know they've been being challenged. They go to the poll the vote and find out that they've been challenged, and they're asked to cast a provisional ballot. So there are all kinds of things that are in place now that are just incredible.
Well, what about the provisional ballot? I told you several years ago, I went to vote, and I've been voting at this particular polling place in excess of 8-9 years, and plus it's my neighborhood, so the people know me. They know my whole family, right? Mm-hmm. And when the judge looked through, I guess when she looked me up, she said, "You voted this morning, Miss Jackson." I said, "Now this right here, all that I do to get ready in the morning, I wear makeup, y'all. For those of you who are not watching, and if you go on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel or the Santita Jackson and Friends page, you can see us visually." I said, I wasn't here this morning. I said, you know me. I'm here now. And it was just back and forth. I was outraged. I don't even know. I don't know where the outrage came from, Attorney Jones. Mm-hmm. They said, well, we can, Miss Jackson, okay. I guess they thought my mother was going to come out of me. So, Miss Jackson, we'll just the provisional ballot. I said, oh, in stronger words than that. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing a provisional ballot. Mm-hmm. I said, y'all gonna work this out. I have not been here to vote. I'm not gonna give you a ballot that you can just throw away. Mm-hmm. I don't know what this provisional ballot is about. I said, particularly since I didn't vote, clear this up right now. I said, I'm not leaving until you do. Now everybody's not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you bump into what about the provisional ballot? Are they valid ways of voting? Will your vote count?
And the answer is it depends. It may or may not count. And what happens is that if they cannot find your name on the voter registration list, if there's some other issue that is generated so that they don't think that you have the right to vote, they're going to ask you to fill out this provisional ballot. And it's provisional, meaning that providing that other information comes along to validate that you can vote, then they will process that vote. But if the other information doesn't come along to connect it up to validate that your vote should be counted, then your vote will not be counted. So, when you cast a provisional ballot, we tell people all the time that is your absolute last resort. Your absolute last resort. Because generally, you don't know if it's going to be counted or not. And so it's important to just cast the original ballot. Now, if you're confronted with a situation, as you were, where you know that you hadn't been there before, that no one's this is your initial time to vote, this is where you vote, this is and everything is in place, then you want to be insistent that you cast a regular ballot, not a provisional ballot. Speak to there should be a judge that's there, an election judge that's there, an elected official that's there to walk through the process with you and try to get it corrected. You also, before you cast that provisional ballot, if you think that you are being wrong, there should be someone at your polling place from election protection. Generally, they'll have a shirt on saying election protection. You can talk to them. They have access to attorneys that will assist you. If you're not satisfied to that point, you can then call 866 our vote, 866 OURVOTE, and you'll be lined up with an attorney that is from that particular area where you're voting, that particular state where you're voting, and can walk through with you what you should do to have your vote counted and cast. If it gets to the point that it's provisional ballot, and this is where you are, then cast that provisional ballot. But do not leave that voting site without casting some type of vote, some type of ballot at that polling place. That's just extremely important. And be certain that you have some type of proof that you have cast the ballot.
What kind of proof do you get?
A lot of times they'll give you, you can leave with the tab, one of the receipt tabs indicating that you voted. You need something because you need to be able to track what has happened. There are different programs that are around in Georgia. It's like my Georgia program. Virginia has one. Most of the states have one where you can, my Ballotopia, right, where you track the ballot. Even if it's a provisional ballot, you have the ability to track to see, has it been counted? Where is it in the process? So you can check to be certain that your vote has not only been entered, but that your vote has also been counted.
So if you, we for people who don't have English as their first language, or they're not proficient in it, and you can be born in the United States and not really be proficient in English.
Mm-hmm.
You might not be able to read or write. I mean, my great grandmother couldn't read or write. And she almost missed the opportunity to vote for my father for the presidency because she would have to publicly disclose
Mm-hmm.
that she was illiterate and she was unable to write. And that, for someone who had sent, who tried to send her daughter to college, who helped to send her grandsons to college and watch them graduate, that for her was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
It was, God bless her, it was an attack upon her pride. So we had to beg her. We had to beg her. Because you can't miss this opportunity. Grandma Tibby Butt, because my grandmother had to walk with her, and my father was there too.
Mm-hmm.
But they had to walk into the booth with her to show her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the right to do that? I've got about 2 minutes.
You absolutely do. And
Anywhere in the United States?
Anywhere in the United States. And your father was a big part for the reason why. One of the things that people get lost in is believing that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 only applied to people of color. It doesn't. It was expanded 2 times. And with one of those expansions dealt with language, another expansion dealt with those that were that needed assistance, whether it was literacy or physical assistance in voting. So from the Voting Rights Act, you have the right to have someone assist you with your voting if you need assistance in the voting process. And it's one of the biggest challenges, Santita. I mean, you maybe unintentionally just put your finger on a landmine, because what's happening, and you've heard me mention this last time we were together, that in the 8th Circuit, out of the Minnesota area, and those states surrounding that area, there's now been a movement so that private organizations, private individuals cannot bring violations of the Voting Rights Act on their own. Only the U.S. Attorney General would be able to bring that type of violation of your voting rights. So if you were a person that was functionally illiterate or illiterate,
Yeah.
and you couldn't read everything so you can cast the ballot, and they didn't let you bring someone in to help you, which would be a violation of the Voting Rights Act, you would have to go to the Attorney General's office to ask for assistance to bring an action against them and hope that they were willing to do it. Because the Attorney General's office only brings cases in less than 10% of the voting rights cases across the country. So, you do have a right, in the short answer, because of the Voting Rights Act, to have that assistance provided for you, to have the language language assistance if you need language assistance, reading assistance if you need reading assistance, and physical assistance if you need physical assistance to be able to vote.
Stay right there. We're going to bring up Paul Vallis. He almost became mayor last year in Chicago. But I want you to hear his story, and I want you to respond to this, because not only do we have to protect our vote, and we're going to continue this conversation, we have to protect the message, because now AI has gotten in our campaigns. And I cannot wait to hear his story, and I want you to respond to it. Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, you log out and log into the next for the next hour of the Santita Jackson Show. See you in a minute here on AM 950 Radio.